It's patch day in DC Dark Legion, and we've got a lot of ground to cover today, so let's jump right in and I'll tell you everything you need to know. First thing to note is that your hyper time tracker should be updating today for the beta servers 200 through 205. We're getting Hippolyta, and you're going to get boosted odds for Harley Quinn, Two-Face, and Deadshot if you're pulling for Hippolyta right now. Definitely make sure that you're checking the Hypertime tracker for your specific server to see which champions are coming for you. Along with the addition of Hippolyta to the game, they are adding her legacy piece, so even servers who aren't pulling for Hippolyta should have access to her legacy piece. It actually looks quite nice, and we'll be doing a deep dive into Hippolyta's kit and also her legacy piece at some point in the near future. They did add a entry for Hippolyta in the strategy guide. You can see the recommended team isn't exactly ready yet because Amazons aren't quite ready yet, but we do have some basic information on what game mode she's best in, recommended legacy pieces, that sort of thing. And it gives you a little bit of a write-up of what her kit does. But again, in my Whaler Skip video soon, we'll talk about all the things you need to know there. They teased this on the official Discord server and on social media, but they've added several higher level coordinated assaults into Defeat the Dark Legion. So you can see that they've added the Trench, level 425, Devastation Sphere, level 375, Plague Sorcerer, level 325, the Restless Sisterhood, level 275, and those are all much higher than the Amazonian Defender, which was the highest level you could get before. Now, as you know, coordinated assaults are a kind of set it and forget it type thing, but if you have a lower level roster or you're a newer player, you're definitely going to want to make sure you have some friends that can join your coordinated assault so that you can defeat those. The next thing that's being added, and again, this is a beta server, so 200 through 205 only thing to start out with. We get to be the testing ground, and then you guys will find out how the game mode works. But they are adding a new cross-server Battle for Gotham. It's called Ultimate Battle for Gotham. It looks like that's going to be available starting September 8th. I'm assuming that means that's when signups happen, because that is a weekday. I think it's a Monday or Tuesday. But we would expect for Ultimate Battle for Gotham to happen at some point in that week. And again, once we have a little bit more information in game for that, I'll make sure to do a video covering how the game mode works, whether there are any intricacies that you're not going to see in the normal Battle for Gotham. Of course, the big thing about Ultimate Battle for Gotham is that all of the leagues who have been fighting against each other for the last couple of months are going to have to come together and work as a cohesive team to take down all the other servers around them. So it's going to be interesting to see that power dynamic play out and how it works. The other thing is there is a lot riding on this because the Omni president, the president who of the winning league, is going to be able to appoint a couple of new officers to his or her council, and those officers will be able to basically be the presidents of the losing leagues. So it's quite interesting to see how that's going to work. It's going to be a first time thing in this game. So again, we'll definitely be covering that and kind of seeing how it works and what the community sentiment is around it. I think, the thing that a lot of people are wondering, the thing that I'm wondering is, what's the purpose of having the regular Battle for Gotham if the president who wins that Battle for Gotham doesn't even get to be the president over their server? Like if the Omni president can appoint people to their council who run the councils of the losing leagues, then it's kind of, I don't know. I feel like we don't have the full details there. So again, we'll make sure we cover that whenever we do. It doesn't show up here on the event calendar yet, but we are going to be getting a Wheel of Fate again on August 29th. As you may recall, Wheel of Fate is the slightly more, or I would say considerably more pay-to-win version of the kind of monthly event calendar that we typically, or monthly event that we get. The Teen Titans event, as I mentioned in the video where I covered that event, is much more palatable for spenders. I would think you get a lot more resources out of putting a little bit of money into an event like that one. The Wheel of Fate is much more RNG based, and what I've found is you don't get nearly as many resources for it. So spin at your own risk, take your daily spin and maybe call it quits if you're a non-spender. But that's kind of where we're at with that one. That is going to be coming fairly soon. And that will be available for all servers up to 389. So if you're on any server newer than 389, you will not be getting Wheel of Fate. Next big thing to cover is the Monitor's Legacy. So they have changed where Monitor's Legacy appears, and they've also made a couple of modifications to it. You used to go into the little hamburger menu and it would be up here below Bleed. What you have to do now is go into your shop and you'll select Legacy, which is the third one over. And this is going to give you access to your full Legacy Pass. So you'll still have your ability to claim over here in Legacy. You'll have challenge, so you can claim your rewards from doing certain challenges during the period. And then you'll be able to empower the Legacy by purchasing one of the premium passes. This Monitor's Legacy has already been ongoing, so we're not going to get the new effects until after this is over with, but you are going to get a couple of key changes to how this works. Right now, the maximum Legacy level is 80. That is going to change to level 55 whenever it changes over, and they have optimized or moved around some of the leveling requirements and that sort of thing, like the rewards that you're going to be getting, because they've shortened or made it smaller. So I do expect it to be harder to get to the end, but it seems to be much more rewarding when you do. Now, the couple of big changes that they made, if you empower the Monitor's Legacy, so I believe it's going to be from the $20 pack, you will immediately get a Mythic Legacy piece. So I think that one is going, I don't know which ones we'll be able to choose from. Obviously, we'll cover that as soon as it comes up. It already has the text in here, empower Legacy and reach level 30 to unlock a Mythic Legacy piece. We're way past level 30, so that's why I say I'm pretty positive we're not going to be getting it this time around. It'll be the next time. But the other thing is, for the actual Legacy Pass, level 30, and scroll down to it, level 30 would typically, in the Premium Pass, grant you a legendary Legacy piece. The way it's going to work now is the base side, the left-hand side, is going to reward the legendary Legacy piece, and then if you purchase the Empowered Legacy, I believe even just the $10 Empowered Legacy, you're going to unlock the premium side, which will give you a Mythic Legacy piece. Overall, I'm happy to see a couple of changes coming to this Legacy system, especially if it means more resources, even if you have to spend. I've been a big proponent of spending the $10 on the Legacy Pass if that's the only thing that you buy during each month, because you really do get a massive amount of resources by doing this. The next improvement they made is to the Umbral Rift. The big changes here are there's now going to be a light mode. So when you're in the Rift, down here in the bottom, there's this little raceway. There's a lot of ships that show up on it, and it has caused tremendous lag for people recently, depending on what device you're using. Especially older devices probably struggle with it. They've made it where it will reduce the number of ships on screen, and that should help take away some of that lag, so you can stay inside the event screen the entire time you're doing the fight if you want to. The other thing is they did make an upgrade to the, I guess, display functionality. So if you're here on the Umbral Rift SON screen, you should see a little bit more information about what's going on with the fight. They did make some additional updates to the way mementos work, or the way your wish list works. So any wish list item that hasn't been fulfilled in a certain amount of time will automatically be dropped. I don't really see how that's much of a benefit, because you can automatically cancel or swap out, or you can manually cancel or swap out mementos that you have set in your wish list. But I guess another functionality for trying to help someone, maybe nudge them in the direction of, hey, you're asking for something that nobody has, maybe you should try something else. That's fine with me. They did also make an improvement to the store, they said, so let's check that out. It looks like what they did was, I believe the legendary and mythic boxes have stayed the same, but they've changed the first box that you could obtain to a higher level box. It also does look like they increased the amount of duplicate points that you're going to have to spend for it, but I would say that's a pretty fair trade-off to make sure that you're getting some high quality mementos. Now, that this purple box, you will be getting an opportunity to you'll get 3 mementos, and one of those is guaranteed to be 3 purple. So it is going to help you fill out your collection over time. I'm still trying to save to get up to the mythic box, so we're going to do that. Maybe I'll open it on a video for you guys. I did check to see the prices for selling your duplicates into the system, and it seems like the duplicate points that you get from selling them is the same as it was before. But again, nice to see that they've increased the rarity of these boxes that you can purchase. So this next one came as a massive surprise to me, but they have completely revamped the Arkham's Most Wanted team. I think we're actually going to see them get played a lot more in pretty much all game modes. We'll have to do some monitoring to see exactly which game modes they're going to be most effective in, but suffice it to say that Ivy and Scarecrow, who were already reasonably decent champions, are going to be pretty scary, and they're probably also going to cause me to have to make some changes to the way I have everyone ranked. So to do some testing now that this is in game and see what we're working with. So they changed the tag synergy, and then they changed Two-Face, Poison Ivy, and Scarecrow. So let's talk about Two-Face first, and we'll look at Arkham's the Arkham tag. So the Arkham tag previously just increased Arkham Champion's effect accuracy, but now it also increases HP. So all of those Arkham Champions are going to be much more formidable. They're going to survive a little bit longer. So the change that they made to Two-Face's kit is actually an iterative change. You're still going to get the exact same skill here, where his basic attack has a fixed chance to deal additional physical damage. But the other thing that you're going to be getting is, after the start of the battle, all Arkham's Most Wanted allies are going to gain 1 stack of damage over time up every 3 seconds, and that's going to stack up to 5 times. Now that percent damage up is going to scale as you upgrade this skill, so keep that in mind. But I would say this is a significant change to how you're going to be using your Two-Face, and I think that it's definitely going to make Joker much better in combat cycle, and he was already ridiculous in combat cycle. But I think this also might, provide some sort of viability for Arkham's Most Wanted champions in PvP as well. So the next change is going to be to Poison Ivy's kit. Now, it's not a massive change, but it is going to be significant. And what they did was, this is a passive effect, but all vines that are summoned by Poison Ivy are going to be immune to debuffs, and they're going to gain super armor. Basically, that super armor is going to make them incredibly strong and difficult to deal with. So I would expect that all of the mechanics that made Ivy really bad in PvP are probably going to go away. One of the things that's really annoying about dealing with Poison Ivy is if you have Superman or other strong, like, single target damage characters, they're going to focus on the vines first. For whatever reason, Superman always goes for the vine AI first. And if it's taking him longer to deal with those vines, it could probably end up meaning you lose the fight. So I'm definitely curious to see whether we see more Ivies in the Meta Brawl meta, especially at the Grandmaster level in the future. We'll see how that goes. The most significant change is to Scarecrow's kit. Now, we've seen some changes to Scarecrow's kit over time. I think the last time that they changed his kit, it was a slight debuff or nerf to the kit, but it still kept him as an A+ tier champion. This change, or these changes that are happening to him right now, are potentially going to vault him into S tier. We will see how I feel about that over the weekend, but it's definitely going to be significant. So the first one is to his Growing Terror skill, and what they added was a shield equal to 20% of his max HP that he's going to get for 8 seconds. And I believe that 20% shield is probably going to scale as you level up this skill as well, or as you star him up. But this shield is going to be available every time he casts his ultimate, and in certain comps, especially for your Legion of Doom, he's probably going to be casting his ultimate a lot because he's going to have a lot more energy gain. So I think that's a pretty solid buff to his kit. It's going to make an already fairly strong champion that much harder to kill. So for the ultimate, they didn't really change the numbers too much. I believe the amount of damage that you can deal with the ultimate and spiritual damage is going to be exactly the same. And the amount of spiritual defense reduced by mental breakdown, one of the debuffs that happens as part of this ultimate, is going to stay the same as well. But the key differences are, the way the kit used to work is that the ultimate would inflict 2 stacks of scare, And if you had 4 stacks of scare, it would inflict mental breakdown. So basically, you would have to cast the ultimate twice in order to get enough scare on the target to inflict mental breakdown. The new mechanic is going to be that the ultimate will cast 2 stacks of scare and it will immediately inflict mental breakdown. So you're going to get that on the target much faster, meaning that the target is going to take much more spiritual damage than it would before. And then the other thing to keep in mind is the mental breakdown is, when it first starts out, is only going to last for 1 second. So you really want to make sure that you time it to get your ultimate, any spiritual damage ultimate in immediately after Scarecrow casts his. But the more stacks of scare that you have on the target, the more it's going to extend the duration of mental breakdown. So this means that Scarecrow is actually going to get a lot more synergy with a champion like Joker, who can kind of like spread debuffs around to the team. It's just going to make dealing any sort of AoE damage to the team a much more effective. Ultimately, it feels like this is going to be a huge buff for Scarecrow and a huge buff for the Arkham's Most Wanted team. So I'm definitely curious to see your feedback and comments down below on how this has affected your team. If you have a heavily invested Arkham's Most Wanted team already, I'll definitely be talking to some whales to see, what they're seeing with the team. My Joker is not developed at all. I'm waiting on a rerun for that. I still think this is going to definitely be like a huge boon for Arkham's Most Wanted players. We're going to talk about the Batman changes in just a second, but a couple of improvements worth highlighting. And some of these I'm not really going to call improvements because they're actually going to hurt more players than they're going to help, but we'll talk about them anyway. So the first big one, and this one has caused a lot of controversy on the Discord, is that players in elite tier and above are going to be able to deploy vehicles for defense and challenges in Meta Brawl. So anybody who has a Superman rocket is going to catapult to the top of the ranks, and anyone who doesn't have a Superman rocket is going to be stuck not being able to beat them. I have seen some preliminary results that it's not as big of a difference as you might think, especially if you have one of the legendary ships that you can put against it. You might still be able to beat some poorly optimized Superman rocket teams. But for the most part, if someone wills enough to get that ship, they're going to know what they're doing and they'll just copy someone else's comp and be able to beat you. So it is going to kind of create more of a hierarchy in Meta Brawl, and a lot of people who were able to get a little bit higher and punch up are going to not be able to do that anymore. I think lower levels, so like, Grandmaster 50 and below, is probably not going to see much of a change. If anything, it's going to be better for the players who've been playing for a lot longer. Not necessarily whales, but just people who have invested a lot of time into the game should be able to hold their own in those game modes, or in those rungs below Grandmaster fairly well. So, I think for some people it's not going to be a felt difference. For others it is. And ultimately all this really does is incentivize people to spend more. So I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I'm curious to see any sort of justification from the devs on that, if we get any. They did adjust the difficulty for parts of Dark Portal and Anti-Crime Network. I've already been made aware of some bugs that are preventing people from completing challenges when they beat them in Anti-Crime Network. So be careful spending your time trying to beat those, because as of right now, there's definitely some sort of a bug going on with that. They added the ability to, it says they added the ability to use preset squads in Strategic Challenge and Checkmate Crisis, but as far as I know, I've been able to use preset squads or to set my lineups in both of those modes before. So let me know if you get what they're saying here, because it seems like we already have that. They adjusted the battle duration of Battle for Gotham from 3 hours to 2 hours. I think that's going to be a welcome change for a lot of us who don't have 3 hours of time to just sit and play a game mode on the weekends, especially on Saturdays. So I'm happy to see that happen. I no longer have access to Interstellar Visitor, but they did add some intel points and drones for selling Interstellar Visitor that weren't available before. So if you're struggling with those items, you will be able to purchase more of them if you're a spender. Non-spenders should just completely ignore those items that they've added. It's not worth spending your resources on those. And the last thing is they raised the discount for Mythic Champion shards in the League store. So we'll take a look at that and see if we can see that difference. I don't think it was much of a difference. 3,200 for a flash shard, that seems like it's still a little bit high. I've seen some lower than that, I think, in the past. Let me know what's the cheapest you've seen champion shards in the league store, and we'll maybe try to compare that. And lastly, we'll talk about Batman and his ultimate changes. So here you can see what the new version of Batmobile is, but I went through the patch notes and looked at the before and after and did a little bit of a comparison. So if we take a Batman who's at max stars, so 5 red stars, the previous max damage that you could do if you didn't have any tag synergy from Justice League was 750% of attack. The new max damage is 900% of attack. So just at a base level, like if you're using him with, say, like a Nightwing lineup or something like that, there's a net increase of 150% damage when you do that. So it's definitely going to be a felt increase for anyone who is using Batman with those lineups. And let's be honest, a lot of people are doing it that way. Now, if you're using Justice League tag synergy, the previous max damage with 3 Justice League champions in the lineup, including Batman, was 1,040%. The new max damage with 3 Justice League champions is 1,125%. So it's not quite a 100% increase, but it is an increase nonetheless. So like you're going to be seeing a small felt difference with that 3 Justice League tag synergy. Now, the last point to make is that they've removed the ability to get a 5 tag Justice League bonus with Batman's Ultimate. So the previous max damage with a 5 Justice League tag synergy was 1,330. And again, if we compare that to the new max damage with the 3 Justice League, which is the highest you can get, it's going to be a net loss of about 205% damage. So, quite significant change there. So you're going to have to figure out a way to kind of offset that if you were using a Justice League team. So, it's like a half nerf, half buff, really, if you look at it. Depending on which situation you find yourself in or how you're using your Batman, this could be a big positive change for your team, or it could be a slight negative. So let me know how you've been using Batman and whether this affects you, but it's definitely probably going to be a frustration point for certain people. But that's going to do it for this edition of the patch notes. Let me know what you think about the patch. I think this is one that's going to be quite divisive in the community. There are some things that are really positive changes, a lot of quality of life. We're getting Hippolyta and a few other things. But then, obviously, if you're Arkham's Most Wanted fan, you're going to be super happy. But I think there's also going to be some divisiveness because of that meta brawl change where you can now use the ships. I think that's going to hurt some non-spenders who are trying to compete at the highest level. They're just not going to be able to at this point. Super excited for the Ultimate Battle for Gotham. Super excited to do some pulls for Hippolyta. I have her, I think, at enough to get her to two or three blue stars now. I'm not using or accessing those shards until we get to champion upgrade day, so it's going to be a couple of days, but I'm going to try to pull her a decent amount. I really like the kit, and I think she's going to be a pretty solid champion. So be on the lookout for the Wheeler skit for that. Be on the lookout for some videos that cover some of these changes in greater detail if needed down the road. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps with the algorithm. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers. Super excited and grateful for that. And if not, I will see you on the next video.